Hi there, this is Jen, and thanks so much for stopping by today. Today I'm making two cards using a really beautiful die set that is actually two pieces. So these could be winter cards or Christmas cards. I pretty much made some Christmas cards. But this die is a Sue Wilson die from Creative Expressions. It's called Christmas Layered Snowflake. So it has these two pieces. It has the outside bigger piece, which has some embossed lines on it, and then it has the snowflake portion in the center, which can be cut or not. So you can leave the snowflake out when you cut it and it will be a solid piece, or you can put it in and it will cut that piece out. And the die itself is a 5x5 die. And so my end result card, the total size is going to be 5 3/4 by 5 3/4 because I am going to be using some 6x6 envelopes to send these out in the mail, which is a little bit more expensive than a standard because it is a unusual size, but I love the 6x6 sizes or the bigger card sizes like this. So for my first card, I am going to use some accent opaque white paper, which is a little bit thicker, and I chose to use a little bit thicker paper because I really like the look. It looks like cushiony to me or something when you have dies like this that leave those embossed lines in it. And so I really wanted that to look really like soft. And so I went ahead and used that paper. It is a heavier paper, so I did run the die through a few times, and I also did use a shim. This is a pretty detailed die, and so you might need to do that if you're using some thicker cardstock. And the die doesn't cut out the square on the outside, so I just went ahead and I took my paper trimmer and trim around the edges. And then I'm going to take my two pieces and set those aside, and I've gotten a piece of watercolor paper out. I'm going to be using some of the pixie powders. If you've followed me for any amount of time, you know it's one of my favorite products is the watercolor powders. And so I try to use them as often as I can. And so the colors that I'm using in the pixie powders are Teal Wash and Golden Mint. And I usually put the dry powder down first and then spritz with water, but you can put the water down first and then add the powder to it. Whatever works for you. Sometimes I do both of those, but I probably do the powder first and then activate with water last. And these have a really nice shimmer to them. You probably can't tell right here, but later on in the video when I show the card kind of up close, you can see it a little bit better. And so I went ahead and I set that aside to dry, and I'm taking some Nuvo Crystal Glaze, which is basically the same as the glossy accents, and I put that on a plastic sheet, and I'm just brushing that on with a paintbrush. You can use whatever adhesive you would like to use. I'm using glitter, and so that just happened to be there within reach, and so that is what I chose to use. But once I have put the adhesive on there, I'm going to go ahead and take the glitter and just sprinkle that on top of my snowflake. This glitter, I don't know if it's any longer available. It's the Tim Holtz Rock Candy, and I don't know if these are still sold, but whatever glitter you have is fine. I just wanted a really white snowflake, and so that is why I chose the white. And I didn't want to get my pick dirty, and so I'm using a toothpick to go ahead and kind of clean out a little bit of that glitter from the holes in the snowflake. And I've already gone ahead and I've adhered the top portion of that die piece to my background. And then I'm going to adhere the snowflake to that background. I wasn't really sure if I wanted it straight on or if I wanted it turned a little bit to show a little bit more of that color. And I did just decide to go ahead and turn that so more of that color showed through. And then I'm going to take my glue, and I'm just gluing more towards the center of the snowflake because I kind of bend up the edges around the snowflake so it is kind of dimensional or away from the card, so it's not flat. And then for the sentiment, I am using a sticker sentiment from this Tim Holtz. It's called Occasions in Small Talk, and I went ahead and popped that up. And this one says, I don't know, I can't read it. And then I'm going to go ahead and adhere this to a piece of white cardstock that is slightly bigger than the shape that I cut out. And then I'm also going to add one more layer, and for this I am just taking a piece of white cardstock and I am ink blending a little bit of Salvaged Patina, and then I went ahead and adhered that together. I added a few sequins to finish the card off, and I really love how this turned out. I absolutely love this die. It is so pretty, and you can use it in several different ways. And then I also did the envelope. I wasn't thinking, I ran this envelope through, and so it does have the holes in it. I have to figure out if I'm actually going to use this or not. I think it looks kind of cool, but that is a 6x6 envelope, so the card fits really nicely inside of it. And that will finish off this first card. For the second card, I'm going to get a little bit messy, and I'm going to take the Snowflake. I'm going to add some Aurora Flakes. This is icy pink. And if you're not familiar with Aurora Flakes, or you haven't used Aurora Flakes or gilding flakes, I did make a video about a year or so ago showing lots of different ways to apply it, adhesives to use. I'll go ahead and pop that up on the top if you're interested in checking out that video. But for this, I am using some Flake and glitter glue by Creative Expressions, and I have just applied that with a dauber. And then I'm going to take the flakes and basically just burnish them onto that adhesive. And so I am taking my fingers and rubbing that onto the snowflake to try and get all of the flakes stuck to the areas that have glue. And then I'm going to remove that with a fairly, maybe a medium stiff brush, I would say. This is a scrapbook.com brush. I don't think these are available any longer, but just something that's slightly stiff, or stiff enough that it will remove any flakes that are not attached to glue. This is super messy, as you can see, so I'm using my splatter box because I didn't want them to get all over the place. They are very light, so they just kind of take off into the air. But as you can see from my hands, they are pretty stuck. I got glue on my fingers anyhow, and so they stuck on them. It washes off super easy though. It's fun to get messy every once in a while, but one thing you can do to try and eliminate some of the flightiness and to clean up is to use a fabric softener sheet. I didn't have one in my craft room when I did this, and so I didn't use one, but that will help to kind of clean up and keep the little stray flakes from moving all over the place. And so I went ahead and I took another piece of Accent Opaque white cardstock, and this time I did not cut the die, and I'm going to do a little bit of dry embossing. So I've placed the die in the center of that that piece. And this is the sandwich for a Sijic Big Shot. It's just the main plate, and then you're going to use your cutting plate. I'm using a magic mat in place of that. And then you're going to put your rubber mat, your cardstock, and then your die facing down, and then your other cutting plate on top. And I just ran that through my Big Shot machine, and it comes out with this beautiful embossed snowflake. So it's another way you can use this without actually cutting out the middle portion. And then the snowflakes that I created using the Aurora flakes, I'm just going to go ahead and adhere those to several sides of the card. I chose the sentiment die that says "'Tis the season to sparkle," added a few different embellishments around the card, and then did the same as with the first card. I made a background using the Kitsch Flamingo color. And so for this envelope, I went ahead and I did dry embossing. I think it's really cool because it leaves that open space in the middle to add the address line, but I just think it adds a little extra element to the envelope just to make it a little more special, and I think that's really cool. So I hope you like this video and the cards that I created. I absolutely love this die. I just think it's so stunning and just beautiful. So I hope you liked it as well. If you did like this video or find it informative, please go ahead and give me a thumbs up. As always, I thank you so much for taking some time out of your day to spend with me, and I hope to see you next time.